Hi, I'm Adam Sona, and this is Page by Page, a show dedicated to promoting literacy, authors, their works, and their words. And today I am joined by Jeff High, the author of More Things in Heaven and Earth by Penguin Press. A very great book, and very honored to have you, especially being a Maury County resident and author. Always glad to promote local talent, especially since this book has received such critical acclaim. I mean, it's a wonderful book.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Let's talk a little bit about you, Jeff. Before we dive into the book, let's talk about you. What's your background? I mean, I know that you grew up here in Tennessee.
I did. My family moved here in the early 60s. My father ran the agricultural research facility out on the Nashville Highway. He worked for the University of Tennessee. I'm the youngest of 5 boys, and we all lived out there and on the farm and worked on the farm. But my parents were very, very high on education. My dad actually has a PhD in genetics, and so education's always been a very key thing for us. And with me, I actually went off to school thinking about possibly a medical career or a career in the medical related field, but actually ended up becoming an English major, and have always had a love of English, have a love of writing, and pursued it casually over a number of years. And ultimately, in later life or in midlife, I went back to nursing school. I was too old, too dumb to go be a doctor as far as I was concerned. And at any rate, it was after I graduated nursing school and was working at Vanderbilt University that I really started getting serious about possibly writing stories about the medical career.
Okay. Well, I can see how both aspects come into play in this book, especially your degree in English.
Yeah.
Because several quotes from the Shakespeare.
Yes, yeah, that is true.
Especially the title, "More Things in Heaven and Earth." Well, that's Hamlet, right?
That is correct. The title is actually is taken from a scene in Hamlet. It's the scene where his father has come to visit him. His father's a ghost,
right?
And his father has come to visit him, and he is actually descending back down into the floor as a ghost does. And Hamlet's friend Horatio walks in and sees the ghost but doesn't believe it's there. Horatio is a very logical fellow. And Hamlet makes the statement to him, "There are more things in heaven and earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophy." And that quote was pretty significant for the book because it really speaks to some of the undercurrents and the themes that work through the book regarding that this young doctor who has come to this small town over the course of the story learns that there are more things in heaven and earth regarding why he is there.
Right. Well, I find it a very interesting story, and I know you probably drew upon your experiences in the medical profession in the book, and also your experiences growing up in a small town.
Absolutely.
You see this young doctor graduating from Vanderbilt, and he has a lot of student debt.
Exactly.
And he needs to find a job to pay off this debt.
Yeah, the story is about a young man, a young doctor who grows up in very urban Buckhead, which is, of course, the north part of Atlanta. And he goes to Vanderbilt. He's very bright. He finishes first in his class. And he'd really like to do research. I think that's what he feels like his real interests are. But he's got over $200,000 in debt, and he ends up signing a contract with this remote little town in Tennessee called Water Valley to be the sole physician at their clinic, and they will pay off his college debts if he does that. And he's a likable soul. He's certainly not arrogant to them or anything, but he certainly feels detached. He doesn't think he's really suited to be a small town doctor, but he decides he has to do this. Well, his first week or so there, he has several domestic disasters that happen, and he's almost afraid he's going to be labeled the Newtown idiot more than he is the Newtown doctor. So that sort of sets in motion what's happening with the story as it begins.
I believe I remember reading in the book that he wrote that, or you wrote rather, that they were simple people, but not really that simple. They really couldn't figure them out.
Well, yeah, and that's it kind of relates back to your previous question. One of the things that I really wanted to do in this story is write about small town life as I knew it growing up, and certainly in many ways as I know it now. Southern fiction typically is, well, the most popular Southern fiction probably has been Southern Gothic. The South has a storied past, let's face it.
Right.
And clearly, you know, there are some wonderful and brilliant books that have been written. I mean, I'm talking about Faulkner and Thomas Wolfe and Flannery O'Connor, that in a lot of ways talk about some of the depravity of the South. And I don't want to discredit those, but I wanted to write something different. I wanted to write a story about what I saw that was sweet and decent about the society and the culture that I grew up in. And so perhaps one of the best ways to do that is from a writing technique is by contrast. So what I did was to take this young urban doctor, place him in a very remote town of Water Valley, and then by contrast, it's the opportunity to tell a lot about the people there, which all too often, you know, are sort of pigeonholed or sort of stock charactered as being simple bumpkins and whatnot. And the people I knew growing up were anything but that. They were very complex. They were very thoughtful. They had a lot of wisdom and philosophy, and I grew to really appreciate and love their nature. And yet at the same time, they were grounded in agriculture most of the time. They were grounded in their faith, and they were grounded in their families. And I just feel like that's something that's an untold large part of Southern life that we don't tend to have written about enough.
Right, I agree with you. And that, you know, one thing I really appreciated the book was that you told a very compelling story without using curse words.
Well, there are a few.
There are a few, but they were mild.
They're in
comparison.
They're in keeping with the character
Right.
that happens to express those. Yeah, my books are I've told this joke or the story, and it's kind of a joke, but it's sort of true. Is that I never thought I could write anything in which my mother's book club would be ashamed to read, and so I had to. It's always going to probably be PG. But the truth is that's really who I am, and I'm not interested in going into that kind of graphic detail. And again, I'm not interested in writing, you know, hardcore Gothic kind of literature. And let me say this, you know, the story is not just whitewashed people who have no flaws. I mean, there's an unwed mother, there's an alcoholic, and there are people who have a disdain, and some of them have a disdain for church and faith and family. And while I bring those things out, I don't celebrate them. I mean, I think that's the clear distinction. You know, you have to write about people with a level of accuracy and a level of honesty. But the difference is I'm not celebrating those particular aspects of their lives, but simply writing about them in a realistic way.
Right. Now, there are several memorable lines from the book. One, I think the more memorable lines, the doctor, he's trying to find Water Valley. And he stops at the gas station, and you know, this fellow happens to come along in a pickup truck. Ends up being a major character later on.
Yes.
But at the time they were strangers. The doctor asked for directions, and what did he say?
He stopped at this remote country store, and he really went in to ask the storekeeper, or store owner rather, you know, how do you get to Water Valley? But it was a rather intense kind of event. He just didn't do it, and by the time he got out the door, he realized he had forgotten to do that. This stranger comes walking up the steps, a real gruff-looking older fellow. And he asked him, he said, can you tell me how to find Water Valley? And he notices that this guy's looking at him with a level of sophistication he didn't really quite expect. And of course, we find out later this guy is a very well-educated fellow. Just looked pretty rustic. And the guy kind of looks at him and says, yeah. He says, just keep following down that road there till you start feeling stupid. And there's a story behind that story that I want to tell. And my son went to, for a couple of years, went to Auburn. And we would go down to visit him from time to time. And what happened once was, instead of going to Montgomery and taking a left, we kind of took the back roads in Birmingham. Well, I got lost at last year's Easter egg. And so I'm at this little crossroads with a country store, and I pull in, and I walk in, and it should have been my clue that behind the counter was this huge, with all the chewing tobacco, was all this huge banner of Alabama, and Alabama paraphernalia everywhere. And I said, hey, buddy, can you tell me how to find Auburn? And he just kind of looks at me and says, yeah, just keep driving down that road there till you start feeling stupid. I had to laugh going out, but I got out of there pretty quickly. But needless to say, and that's, to be candid, that's where a lot of great lines in Water Valley come from, or just from everyday experiences that I have with people. If you don't mind, I'm going to tell you another one that I really love, and it's one that Connie says, and in many ways it's pretty thematic of small town life. And he's having breakfast with her one morning, and she's his housekeeper. And any rate, they're having a conversation about, he says he doesn't really get small town life. And he just said, there's just not a lot to do here. And her response says, don't worry, Dr. Bradford. He said, there's not a lot to see in Water Valley, but what you hear makes up for it. And so that's one of the more fun things. And that was told to me by a woman a number of years ago. And I sort of thought, that is so classic. I've always got to remember that.
And I agree. I mean, it was very true in the book, too. I mean, anything
Truly.
that happened, the town knew about it.
They really did.
And his arrival in town was very spectacular.
Yeah.
I know that was very memorable for all the citizens of Water Valley.
Yeah. He drives into town, and it's a hot July day. He drives this old Corolla that has no air conditioning, and he ends up stopping and getting a six-pack of beer. And he knows he's not supposed to drink one, but he's just hot as can be. He's frustrated. He can't find the town, and so he pops one open. And then about that time he does, he's coming into the edge of town, and there's a police escort waiting for him that he didn't realize was going to be there. So all these blue lights come out at him, and he drops the beer and spills it on the ground, ends up following the sheriff into town, and tries to change his pants in the meantime because he's got beer all over him. Ends up having to stop again immediately when he gets to the downtown area, and then it turns out that the sheriff of the mayor opens the door, and he's there trying to put his pants on while the town is sitting there watching him, and then of course that's the time the beer can drops out. And so it's like I said, he's kind of a domestic disaster at the start of the book.
Yeah. I've really enjoyed the book, and I know this is going to be the first in a series, right?
It is.
Can you give us a little sneak preview into the second
The
book?
next book is called Each Shining Hour. It's actually in my editor's hands right now.
Oh, good.
It will come out October 1st of this year, and it continues the story of Luke Bradford, but also involves an old murder mystery that dates back to around World War II, which becomes pretty fascinating, I think, and it weaves through the story. But as well, in the backdrop is the continued romance of Luke Bradford with Christine Chambers, and I'd like to think that people who read the story will be very enchanted with that part of the book as well.
Good. And if anyone wants any information on you or the books, what do they need to do?
We have a website called watervalleybooks.com, and it's a lot of fun. It's a place where I write short stories every month, and there are little snippets from different characters in the book. We have contest giveaways, and just talks in general about the small town of Water Valley, as well as things going on in my writing career. So watervalleybooks.com. It's all one word and all lowercase, and it's a really fun endeavor to do that and to tell stories and to write about this small town. It's something I truly love to do.
Yeah, I can tell that you do. I get on the website from time to time and read your updates. And,
yeah.
You really get a sense of this being a real small town and this being kind of the local newspaper, your website.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
There's just a lot going on in Water Valley, it seems.
Oh yeah. And hopefully that'll continue for a number of years. So we'll see.
Good. I can't wait to read the second book, Jeff.
All right, good deal.
Thank you very much.
All right.
And,
Thank you.
Appreciate everyone watching our first episode of Page by Page. Thank you.